The views and opinions expressed in these historical letters that may contain vernacular used in the World War II era, the post-war era, and the Cold War era do not reflect the views and opinions of any of the individuals involved with this project, including, but not limited to, the podcast's creators. Good morning, Jamie.
Good morning, Allison.
How are you doing this morning?
Well, I have my Love Sweetie coffee mug
Aw,
that my sister got me for Christmas one year.
I love that mug. And I really appreciate your sister for doing that.
Well, she's so sweet. She also got me this little guy right here.
Aw.
My little spring flower. Because it is spring, and guess what? My jonquils are coming up.
I want to plant some jonquils out here if I can, but we had a problem I don't know if you had this problem in southeastern Pennsylvania. When we're recording this episode, it's March 14th, and I think it was on Wednesday, it was on Wednesday, it was like 80 degrees and like humid, and it snowed on Thursday. So if people are listening from other parts of the country and you're not believing us when we say that Pennsylvania truly cannot make up its mind on the weather. The groundhog has no influence anymore from what I can tell. It was 80 and humid and windows were open to let the breeze in, to cool things down in the night. And the next day, by the afternoon, 38 degrees outside and snowing, to the point where my one friend at work joked, "Did you see there's a blizzard outside?" I don't know what to believe anymore. I walked outside and there's the flurry going. And then the sun came out by like 7 o'clock at night, and now it's warmed up again. So we're not sure. But Jamie, I'll believe you when you say it's spring, because maybe in the western part of the state it's spring, but the southeastern part doesn't know what's going on.
Well, it's going to snow here too. It's going to snow here on Wednesday. But the jonquils, they are a hardy bunch. They are going to be fine, I'm sure. And all the daffodils and stuff too. But yes, so it's episode 99.
It
Allison.
is.
It's episode 99. We are officially one episode away from 100.
3 digits.
Now these are episodes that are about the letters. You know, these are the we do have our bonus stuff, which if you ever are interested, we have a great episode about N.A.S. Hutchinson, which I love doing that, and a Tumwa talking with Mr. Black. And our coffee episode. So we do other things. We do other things. But this is 99, and then next week will be 100. Oh, I'm so excited. And I'm so excited too, because I'm going to be seeing you in person.
I'm excited for that. Yeah.
It's nice to have like that milestone and then also get to like celebrate it with you in person. So I'm very excited about this. But to get to episode 100, we must first get through episode 99, which is entitled
Miss Darst Bookcase. So I said a couple episodes ago, episode 97, that Sweetie was going to do some snooping. And we were going to get some more information on what's going on with Miss Darst and her family history. This is that episode. So if individuals are listening are like, what is really going on with Miss Darst and where did she come from and all this kind of thing? Well, Sweetie was curious about the same thing, and she's going to tell us a little bit more about the Darst family today. But we're also going to get some updates on a whole bunch of other things going on as well. And the lead up, where of course we're going to have the tease at the end of this episode for what's to come in episode 100. So with all that being said, Jamie, I don't think there's too much to comment on about where we're at this point. Sweetie, we've gotten past Christmas 1951. Sweetie's in Doylestown. Here in January 1952. We're spending a good amount of time in January 52. So just some basic housekeeping. If you could please like, share, and subscribe to the Love Sweetie podcast on YouTube. If you are listening via audio channels, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all the other places where you access your podcasts, if you could leave a review, follow, download, whatever it is you do on those channels, we appreciate all of that. And of course, check out the website at www.lovesweetiepodcast.com. That's about it for that. So, Jamie, I think it's time to get into mid-January of 1952 and see what Sweetie's up to. The Same Old Place, the 17th, 1952. Dear family and friends, I am limited in time and anything worthwhile to write about, so this will of necessity be a short and not very interesting note from us to you. It is 9 a.m., and the day starting with a bright red sky, and is now cloudy and dull indeed. Cold, not too windy, just strictly ugh. Frank called me from Chicago the other night for the first time in eons, and I was surely pleased. I remember standing in the phone booth in the dark down at Norwood waiting for him to call when he was working the switchboard when Bell Telephone was suffering through a big strike. Let me see, that was back in several years ago. He sounded as though he were right up the street a ways, and I couldn't help but feel halfway round the world when he hung up. I prolonged the call long enough for Louis to say hello to him, and when I hung up amid tears, Louis went also, saying over and over, "I miss Uncle Frank." Frank said they were all recovering from their colds. Guess they sent them on to us, for Lou is about ready for bed with a Lulu, but Louis and I are doing all right. I haven't really accomplished much these past few days. Keeping abreast of the usual chores seems to be about the best I can manage, and I must get myself in gear or I'll be dubbed shiftless, for sure. Lou is working on refinishing an arrowback Windsor chair, after having completed a tilt-top table with a pie-crust top. One of Bob's wealthy cousins or some far-removed relative asked Lou to finish a mahogany table that she had bought unfinished from the manufacturer downtown. It was a big job of sanding and cleaning up their unfinished work. He gave it a very thin coat of clear shellac, and then gave it 8 coats of antique wax, polishing each one till it glistened, and he did a truly beautiful job on it. She paid him $15 for it. Actually, it was worth more than that, but she was disappointed, because it wasn't darker. All her other furniture is varnished, and is much darker. She agreed that she told him she wanted a plain wood finish on it, no stain or varnish, and had to admit she didn't know what she was asking for. It was very well done. I was very proud of Lou for doing it so well, and her disappointment dampened our pleasure considerably. It was a good experience, and Lou did a very nice job on it, and she said so too. I made a mistake in turning the roller, so I shall rewrite the first of that line. As I said, it was her fault. It was good experience for Lou, and gave him a little more confidence in tackling something else. But we've about decided it is foolish to try to open the antique shop while Miss Darst is still with us. She gives us much trouble when people do come into the house, whether they are friends or prospective buyers, that she makes conversation most difficult. There are many things to do yet anyway, and we are keeping ourselves broke trying to accumulate stock. Well, I started this letter some days ago, as you see, and in between times, there's been several little items I ought to mention. Lou's cold finally got the better of him, and he was turned into sick bay on Saturday night. He'd had a fever of 101 on Friday night and was feeling pretty tough, coughing a lot and just feeling wah. They didn't do much for him medically speaking, but the rest and being in out of the cold was worth something. I took Louis and went down by bus to get the car rather than let it sit out while he was there, and when we got back, I let Louis out at the driveway on account of the mud and went to put the car up. He went to the side door that we don't use and banged until Miss Darst got up to let him in. She couldn't open it and told him to go around to the front door, and fell, trying to pick her way through the dark room. She immediately threw that pseudo-hysteria, and I confess I was somewhat frightened, lest she had re-injured that broken hip. She put on a lot of it, frankly, and I doubt very much that she was half as badly hurt as she wanted me to think. I offered to call a doctor, and when she declined, offered to take her to a doctor, which she wouldn't do either, and so decided all she needed was a little sympathy, and that didn't cost me anything, and so I could sympathize, though I sincerely felt she didn't really need it. Oh well, someday I may be old, but God help me if I live that long. Yeah.
Yeah. We love her.
Yeah. There's a lot to sort of comment on here. And I know that Jamie and I know some things behind the scenes that for a moment when Sweetie gives that last sentence, it makes us pause. And I wanted to give a little more information about Sweetie at the end, because she does set down this line. And I think the biggest thing is my grandmother didn't want to be an inconvenience to anybody, and she didn't want to be a burden to anybody. And it's tough when you get older, of course. Things happen, and it's hard. Miss Darst is 90 years old. She had a broken hip. We learned that in this section. And when the body starts to break down and when there's issues, it can lead to other things that make things tougher. Sweetie, when she was around 80, she also broke her hip.
Oh.
And after she broke her hip, she had been very active. Before this point, she'd been volunteering a long, long time in her community at the senior center and places like that. But when that happens and it's hard to get around, I think everybody understands that the less you do, and the less active you are, has a severe effect on morale and has a very strong effect on just other functions, including mental functions. And there was something about her having to go through, because they do like physical therapy, after you go in for surgery for a broken hip and things like that. There were some other complications, and all of it bore down to the point where at the very end, and I mentioned this in episode 0, but there might be listeners who didn't listen to episode 0, breaking that fourth wall here. Sweetie, for the last few months of her life, had full-blown dementia. She couldn't remember anything. She couldn't get around. And so when I see this line as her granddaughter, she kind of writes in a prophetic kind of way what the very end will be for her. But I can tell all of our listeners, if they're like, wow, that's really hard, at the end and things like that. She was with family. We took care of her to the end. And of course, no one's ever a burden. That's just life. That's how it goes. So I guess that was about all I wanted to say about it. But that line hits myself, and I know it hits Jamie because she knew about this very, very hard. And I think our listeners will appreciate just knowing that when Sweetie writes this line in this letter, it's like, but she lived a good, long life. Sweetie died at the age of 86. So she doesn't live as long as Miss Darst, but she almost does.
Almost.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But going back into some other parts of the early portion of this
right.
letter.
There's other stuff that happened in this letter. I forgot. Let me just find myself real quick.
Part. Yeah.
Okay. So first off, did you ever hear the old adage? It's red sky at night, sailors delight, red sky in morning, sailors take warning.
I'm not familiar with that, but I really like it.
When she says red sky in the morning, I was like, ooh, that is
probably
not
what
a
she's
good
referencing.
thing. And that's true. That's how it's been here. Actually, last night we did have a bit of a wind here last night. And it gets kind of windy here. But she got to talk to Frank.
Yeah.
Like, not face to face, but in a telephone. She actually got to hear his voice, which is so lovely. And she, obviously, it affected her and Lewis very much.
And the other part is Lou doing the refinishing work on the table. He's getting better and better at this.
Oh, yeah. And she was so proud.
Yeah. I bet she wanted to keep that table.
Well, there's a chair, too. And I think between the two, we all know what she'd pick.
Yeah.
But I would really love to see the tilt-top table with a pie crust top.
I'm imagining it in my head, the pie crust top. It has to be that little wavy, I guess, maybe edge around it. Tilt top tables, I guess they've always been popular. They angle down and all those things like that. Maybe they're not around as much. I guess I grew up with that kind of stuff so much that I'm just like, tilt top table. Though I will say, behind the scenes, I had to record that line a couple times. Jamie didn't hear any bloopers that I usually edit out, so there's a little more behind the scenes for our listeners. Tilt top table, saying that, and randomly as it comes up in the line, I caught myself. Oh man.
Well, but they also have now, even though the antiques business is their ultimate goal to get into the antiques business, they're taking a little hiatus because it's with Miss Darst, it's not very easy to like interact with customers. So
yeah,
we're
see.
there with that, and poor Lou. He had to go to sick bay.
He hates sick bay.
I love how she's like, I don't like the car to be outside.
yeah. I like it in its garage. So
where it goes. I don't like it to be just sitting there in the outside. How dare it? No, yeah, it's funny because we don't have a garage unless like it's a car. But yeah, she's right. It's better to keep it in a garage.
Yeah.
It's a little bit, especially this time of year. You know. But yes, and then Miss Darst.
What can you do?
She's Miss Darst. She's being all Darsty.
Darsty.
Darstness is a noun, right?
We're making it a thing. It's a noun. Determined it was a noun.
Darsty's the adjective. But yeah, so she's being Darsty, and she could have hurt, but she could hurt herself.
Yeah.
Like she could. So I mean, you do have to be careful. But it seems like Sweetie was on top of that. But yeah, so. And this is actually, see, and I'm used to the mega letters now, so it's kind of weird when it's only like
right.
pages.
Yeah.
But we still have a little bit more of this letter to go.
I've been reading the Demery family book quite a bit lately, and I'm enjoying it very much. All the things those people had to endure make me wonder if my rugged constitution, and just plain fat, can't be attributed to those people. I snuck into Miss Darst's bookcase and got out their Price family book, which, by the way, was not compiled by any member of the family. They hired a genealogist to do their work, and so it isn't nearly so complete as ours, and isn't written in the same way. It is much harder to follow and trace backwards, and besides, ours is much more interesting. Incidentally, I've suspected for some time that there was something more than a screw loose in that family, and now I'm even more sure of it. Miss Darst's mother seems to have gone entirely insane, and was placed in an institution where she remained until her death, I believe. Her own brother, who was approached by the genealogist for information about the family, wrote back, "I refuse to be victim of your little scheme just because my ancestors were pioneers." They published it in the family book, which I thought was extremely poor judgment on top of his refusal to offer any information. This same brother died and left upwards of $90,000, and left not 1 cent to any member of his family, except $1,000 to this nephew, Brower Murphy, even though Miss Darst and this Uncle Ned were still living. It all went to his wife, her family, and huge bequests to churches, hospitals, and such. Even his lodge got a big amount, but the family didn't get a thing. Now isn't that something? I'd never be guilty of such a thing unless, as I feel he was, I was entirely insane, and he must have been. Perhaps all her eccentricities can't be blamed entirely upon her advanced age. Lou bought an old Bible written entirely in Latin and is dated 1616. You know, my Latin knowledge is entirely limited to a few stock phrases, and since it didn't say filia agricolae sunt pretty and good, I wonder if that means they were pretty and good, or just pretty good. We're having difficulty in trying to make out just what it is, but I believe it to be a commentary on Moses, his writings and life. We're trying to look it up through Joe and the New York Library. We haven't found anything else exciting in the line of antiques for some time, and both Lou and I are getting itchy to make a real find. Louis seems to be fine. He did pull a real stinker here the other day. I bought him a new jacket. He had outgrown and wore out the one he had, but the snow pants remained in good condition. So I went and replaced the jacket at small cost, but it was nice, and it looked nice. We had a big snow a few weeks back, and didn't he get down on all fours to play in the snow, which by then was gritty and dirty from the streets, and he came home wet clear through, and dirty as could be. I marched him upstairs, and just gave him a good polishing off with my hairbrush for it. He was wet to his hide, and that new snow jacket was a sight. I made him wear the old ragged one to school. That nearly killed him on top of the whipping he got, and I didn't spare the hairbrush on that either. And then the final punishment was that he had to shake enough money out of his banks, and he's a hoarder too, to pay the cost of cleaning it. I've got to do some mending on them when they come back from the cleaner, and I'm going to assess him a small charge for that too. It is my policy when administering punishment to wait a few minutes and then ask, "Well, what did you learn?" This time he was really howling, and when I asked, he replied, "Boy, I'll never do that again. And if I know him, he won't either." Well, I've spent several days getting this written, and it doesn't amount to much, now that I've got to stop. But stop I must. I hope everyone is all right. Haven't had any letters for some time, and I'm hoping that Mama and Papa aren't suffering too much with the cold weather that the weatherman says you're getting. Hope Mama and Papa are all right, and that I'll hear from you soon. Bye for now. I'll try to write sooner next time. Love to all of you. Sweetie. Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So oh man. So I'm not a fan of spanking.
Yeah.
Just not a fan of it. And I also don't think he did anything wrong. And I think that honestly, this is just, I'm not passing judgment.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just saying where I guess maybe that is that passing judgment if I'm just like, what would I do in that situation?
Kind of, but to each their own.
Well, we all judge.
Mm-hmm.
Judge. But I just don't think that he deserved that kind of treatment just for playing in the snow. Now, I don't know the condition in which he left his pants in, but apparently they needed to be cleaned and mended.
Yeah.
So that's kind of
Seems
but
pretty bad.
I don't think he should have had to pay for it. He's just a little boy. That's what they do. They go and they get, oh geez. Speaking of, I'm like thinking of my own son. Like he's like, I'm gonna go play in the rain. You know what I mean? It's like that's what they do. They want to have fun. So I don't know, but like I said, she was a good mom.
Yeah,
she was a good mom. So we have differing opinions on how to handle situations, and that's that.
Yeah,
but like it was fine. Like it was fine.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, but so I had to talk about that first. I had to get that out of the way.
Yeah, just Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh well, okay. And then another thing is snooping is a bad thing. It's really not a good idea. That's her house, though. It's her house.
Yeah. She owns the house. She gets into the genealogical books. She loves genealogy. She always does, all across her life. And we get a little backstory here about Miss Darst. Now, she even says the genealogist isn't really that great. This isn't handled by the family, and things are a bit messy. And I went back to go check what I thought I knew about the Darst family history based on this letter. Because the ultimate question, as I think everybody has, is who's the brother?
Yeah.
And so for me, I'm like, let's go follow the money. So I think I know who the brother is. I'm going to leave that till a later confirmation, but I do want to play history detective here for a moment so that we can catch everybody up on the Darst genealogy. We have to. This is the episode for it. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, Jamie, here, and I'm going to bring up the page on the Love Sweetie podcast website. Again, audio listeners and everybody else, go check out the Love Sweetie podcast website. We have a section. We have a page here for Miss Darst's family, and this is accessed through the standard family tree and timeline at the bottom. So here is the page. I did make one update because I realized that I had listed one thing incorrectly and may have mentioned one thing incorrectly back in episode 93 about Miss Darst, but I'll explain what it is as we go through. And it's simply the question of her mother and father. All the sibling information is correct. So just to review what we know about Miss Darst, now that we've got to meet her for a number of episodes. Miss Darst was born in Ohio in 1860. she had 3 full brothers, full siblings, and that was Edward Davis Darst, or Uncle Ned, who's the one who has passed away, that was living with her before Sweetie Lou and Louis move in. And then there was a brother who preceded her, Christian Brower Darst. He was the other artist, and he had been living in Doylestown before he died, with Marion, with Miss Darst, and with Uncle Ned. And then she had another full brother, Walter Curtis Darst. So those are the main three brothers for Miss Darst. Those 4 siblings, their parents were John Jacob Darst and Anna Brower. Now, Miss Darst also has half-siblings. And one of those half-siblings was Margaret Darst Murphy, after she's married, because she marries Charles Murphy, who's in business with her other brother, who's still in Ohio, at the paper. They moved to Georgia, and her son is Brower Murphy, which is the nephew who's been visiting, and we can see him pictured here on the page. This is Brower Murphy, Miss Darst's nephew, from Atlanta, Georgia, and Miss Darst herself. And this is pictured at 363 North Main Street in Doylestown in the 50s. And we can see she's holding her cane with the hip.
Yeah, this is a good picture. She's got 2 canes, I think, in this picture. I told you one of them's got to turn into a sword, I'm sure. One of them has to. But if you go back up.
Yep.
So this is because she has a really big, so she's got the full, brothers. And then she's got all these, like, there's
half
like, how many? 7.
Yeah.
And I'm like, where are these half siblings? So these were all born after her? Like these were born to her father?
So these half siblings were born before, including Margaret. So Margaret was born in 1852. And I'm going to explain that because this is how we get back to the story that we're talking about in this episode.
So she's got the 3 brothers. She's born in 1860. And her brothers were all born after, except for Walter Curtis. Walter Curtis was born before she was. Okay.
Right.
Okay. And then, but her half siblings were born before her?
That's right. So what happened is Anna Brower is the mother to all of the siblings, half siblings and full siblings. The difference, and this is where I had gotten confused originally, because I thought that Miss Darst, that her mother was Marion Curtis. And I can I can explain why that happened. But the thing to confirm right here is Anna Brower is the mother to all of the siblings, all I think 9 of them. That we're listing here. Yep. So her father was John Jacob Darst. And then the half siblings, their father was Jacob Darst. And as it would turn out, John Jacob Darst and Jacob Darst are 2 different people. So it doesn't help when like the names are extremely similar in the 1800s.
Were they brothers?
So I looked it back. They were not siblings. Most likely they were probably like second cousins. I'm still trying to track the exact connection, but the Darst family hails from like Berks County by the late 1700s. And before that, they're towards southeastern Pennsylvania. And the Darst family history gets even more sort of confusing because there's a Maryland line with a very similar thing. So I'm working out the exact relationship, but I can confirm they were not brothers. But Darst is a pretty particular name, and I wouldn't be surprised if they were like second or third cousins. So what happens is Anna is married to Jacob Darst and has Margaret Darst Murphy and the other 4 half-siblings. But then Jacob Darst dies in 1857. She then marries John Jacob Darst, and she has Walter Curtis, and then Marion and Christian and Uncle Ned.
Thank you.
So that's how that's working out.
Thank you.
And the reason this all comes into play is I was trying to connect the Price family, because that's the book that Sweetie's looking at, is the Price family book. So Anna's mother is Catherine Price. She's the one commented on the letter that she lived until the end of her life at the asylum. So I wanted to go back and look at who Catherine Price was. Catherine Price was married to Christian Brower. And what's amazing is Catherine is buried in the Doylestown Cemetery.
No way.
Yep. I had not realized she was there. I'm going to go visit.
Just to be clear, because I need this. Catherine was Anna Brower's mother, And Anna Brower was Miss Darst's mother. So this is
Right.
Catherine is Miss Darst's grandmother.
Yep, her maternal
Okay, thank you.
grandmother. Yep,
Okay.
100%. And she's married to Christian Brower. And for the people around Doylestown, I have a lot of Brower texts from the early 1800s. This is definitely Catherine's collection that Sweetie and Lou received. So the Doylestown Cemetery, a portion of that, and most of North Main Street, including the property where 363 North Main Street stands, was all Brower property. So the information I have and the books I have and the paperwork that I have are the documents from North Main Street, which I know are not in the Spruance Library at the Bucks County Historical Society because they've been in my attic for 30 years. So I'm really excited. I'll be sharing some of that information with the Doylestown Historical Society, but I'm definitely going to be heading out to the cemetery and stopping by Catherine's gravesite. So, but she's the one mentioned in the letter. So it's one of Catherine's brothers who's the one that has the 90,000. So this is what I was looking into is, well, who was Catherine's family? Catherine had 3 sisters, so we can rule them out. And then we get to 2 brothers that she had. So it's a 50-50 chance that this guy with the $90,000 was one or the other. One's a Davis Brower, who lived from 1823 to 1911, and he was a farmer. And the other one was a Nathan Pennypacker Brower, who lived from 1815 to 1908. Pennypacker is a big name around these parts. So I have my suspicions, and I think anybody who's familiar with the area, upon hearing the name Pennypacker, is like, it's that one. I don't want to jump to this conclusion. However, one of the clues we have is that he left money to a lodge, and there's a lodge insignia on his very nice headstone. So I think the 90,000, just from that, is most likely Nathan Pennypacker Brower. So he dies in 1908, and I wanted to take a look to see where he was in the 1900 census. We don't have the 1890 census. I don't know if I've talked about this in this podcast.
You did, but just mention it real quick because it's actually very important and it's very, very impactful.
Yeah. The 1890 census for the United States was lost in the archives fire that happened in, I think it was in Washington, D.C. The building caught fire, and the 1890 census was famously lost. So anybody doing genealogy, if you're like on Ancestry, you're like, where's 1890? And you see like special stuff for veterans, completely gone. And it's a barrier. That's a really sad situation for people that rely on that to try to figure out a connection. But he lives to 1908. And we do have his 1900 census, and I have it here to show people the picture of the 1900 census where he appears. I'm going to bring that up on the screen. And I'm going to let Jamie play a little bit of detective on here and see if she notices something, because she will. Let's see. Everybody's going to see this. I'm going to let everybody's eyes adjust because it's a historical document. This is the 1900 census. This is what they look like. The census taker they all had great handwriting back then.
I was going to say. I mean, I would hope.
And what's unusual here is, as you scan through the last names, they're not consistent. So it's not like there's a family and then all the kids listed. So we have to look for Nathan P. Brower here. And where he shows up is on row 38. You see him right here. This is Nathan Pennypacker Brower. And this is all these columns are based on various pieces of information. One of the neat things about the 1900 census as compared to earlier 1800 censuses is we can see employment and what they did. Basically, these columns are where the parents are from. Everybody's from Pennsylvania. This shows like some individuals were from Ireland, that their parents hailed from other areas. That's how they would track that, or different states. But it's Pennsylvania across the board. But this is the occupation field. And if we're following the line, this is what we're looking at. He's a gatekeeper. So we see some other things here. There's a driver, a laborer. There are a bunch of nurses being listed.
Servant.
Yeah, we can see the butcher up here.
Seamstress.
Yeah, seamstress.
Brushmaker.
Yeah. But there's a lot of nurses. And what's really fascinating is where's the rest of the family? Weren't any of his kids weren't with him? In fact, for all these other people, where's the rest of all of their families? This is a highly unusual census. Jamie, there's a reason this census has all these strangers basically in a list and so many nurses, because where the census was taken is the key. In 1900,
it was taken at the state hospital for the insane. That's where he was. That's where he was.
In Montgomery County. This is the Norristown State Hospital for the Insane, which Sweetie's referenced in an earlier letter. She jokes that she might be there.
Well, is he working there?
It's hard because it says gatekeeper, or have they basically said, have they put people who are residents there? Because he's a resident here. Are they putting them in certain roles? Like the nurses, I can't imagine, right? They're living there. They're like resident nurses and residents. So they're listed for that. But gatekeepers, servants, laborers, they're probably working there while they're receiving treatment.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so it looks like he would be at the hospital because he was committed, but it's not the case. He was probably just like a security gatekeeper person. But he had tons of money.
He had a lot of money, but he
so
gave it all away.
Why is he doing this? Why is he gatekeeping this
or is he employed there just so he has somewhere to stay? And like he's familiar with insane asylums because his sister was Anna Brower's mother, who was insane. This is a fascinating census. There's a lot here to kind of really dig into and further about Nathan Pennypacker Brower. So the question is, well, this is the 1900 census. He dies in 1908. Was he only in there for a year or two? Well, we can actually answer that question as well from the other documents. Pennsylvania death certificates are pretty good, starting in about the 1900s. Prior to that point, it's a little trickier, but he dies in 1908. So, Jamie, I do have the picture of his death certificate, and I'll bring it up on the screen. Looking at the death certificate in Pennsylvania, we get some more clues about what happened at Nathan's end of life here. It is in Norristown, so we know he's still in Norristown. There's the name of the father and the mother, so it's 100% him. It's Christian Brower and Catherine Price. Occupation still listed as a gatekeeper, but right below gatekeeper it says, the above state personal particulars are true to the best of my knowledge and belief. This is the informant, the person who witnessed his passing away. And it's signed by an MD at the state hospital. So he's still there when he passes, 100%. And he's buried in Norristown at the Riverside Cemetery. I did find an obituary for Nathan Brower. What's interesting about it is there is a funeral. So funeral expenses are being paid for this. And he has that very nice headstone. But unlike other obituaries, it doesn't really mention like who he was or much information about him. And that makes a lot more sense when you consider that his wife is gone at this point, and for the last 8 or so years, whether he was a full resident or a resident working there or just a worker at the insane asylum, there's not much information the general public would know when he passes. So the obituary is pretty silent as to his personality.
It does say here that contributing factors to his death were chronic nephritis.
Yeah.
So that was a kidney thing.
And
then senility.
Yeah.
So my guess is that he was probably committed. And this would be where he would have probably been contacted by the genealogist. Would be in the hospital, don't you think? Like during this time, because he was there for a long time.
Depending when those Price books were written. And Sweetie says, she's like, I can't understand why he made the decisions he made. Well, I'm not sure there's many people that could, if he's a resident, most likely, with everybody else, and working for his board at the Norristown State Insane Asylum.
He died on Christmas Eve, Allison.
That's rough.
It is rough. Like, this is rough. Like, it's just, what a horrible, I mean, I don't know. It just sounds like such the family history is so dark, you know?
Yeah. There's a great degree of like, we've been questioning for at least the last number of episodes. I'm sure people have been questioning, is Miss Darst just in her Darstness, in the state of Darstness because she's older? And I think with Sweetie, we can resoundingly say, no, there's something going on behind the scenes here. And then Sweetie stops her snooping at this point. We are going to get to meet some of the, we've already met Cousin Ella a little bit. That's coming from the Price line, because one of the Price children, one of the women marries the Wyckoff, and that's why there's that connection to New York. So we're going to get some more backstory pieced together as we continue with Sweetie's story. But as far as this story goes, there's a lot of information. So things to look at. I'm going to be updating the website with an actual visual tree because it's going to help a lot with regards to these lines and the fact that there's a John Jacob Darst and a Jacob Darst. And by the way, I'm going to make sure I say this right because even that's it. Like, yeah, John Jacob Darst, before he married Anna Brower, his I believe it was his wife before him was Marion Curtis, so that's why she picks up the name. It's still an honor to, I think, a previous wife of him. So there's all of this going on, and that's largely the work of all the historians trying to like find the context where it's like, okay, this makes sense, so we can be sure of XYZ. So Sweetie did her snooping.
I like what she says too, how she's like, they hired somebody to do it for
Mm-hmm.
them, and how she kind of looks down on that.
Yeah.
And judge it. It's not as interesting or as thorough as our own because we did it ourselves. And isn't that a funny perspective to take on that? Because I think nowadays, if you hire somebody to do something for you,
Mm-hmm.
it's considered that it's because you want it done right, you know?
Right.
And it's a different shift in perspective for her. But I think that Sweetie understands too that
Yeah.
you know how thorough her own history is and how much. I mean, it's kind of reminds me of you, like what you're doing for your history. Like this definitely would be this. It's because you have that personal stake in it.
Yeah. Well, but also for years, my dad used to say, he's like, oh, if only my mother had like lived long enough, or at least like the tech had happened just a little sooner where she could have had her hands on all the genealogical tools on the internet. That's all she would have done is this. So we know that for sure.
Well, that was, oh man, that was a rough letter.
Yeah.
Like then we got some information. We got, you know, like a very poignant moment that we both understand and hold dear. But oh man. Why is everything getting so like crazy in these last episodes? Because
Right?
we have two more letters.
Yep.
We do have
We have
two
two more letters to go through. Yep.
Yeah, so we're definitely hanging out in January
Yeah.
for a while for this episode.
363 North Main Street, Doylestown, Pennsylvania, January 25th, 1952. Dear Mama and Papa and Sister, and the rest of you characters that don't write. Well, here we go again. I haven't had any answers to my letters except one from Sister that I received yesterday. I hope it is because you're busy rather than being sick or something of the like. I worry about the cold you're having and feel that if anyone is to make the cold walk to the post office, I'd better see to it that there is something in the box, even if it is a poor excuse for a letter. I thought we were going along too nicely, free from colds, etc., and so we've started the rounds again. I wrote you that Lou was sick with a cold, and finally turned into sick bay for a couple days. It is a good thing he did, too, for it got pretty cold, and I was glad he didn't have to be working out in it. He still coughs a lot, especially at night, which makes for unpleasant sleeping, to say the least. Then Louis came and sat with me in the chair to watch TV the other night, and I noticed his eye seemed somewhat inflamed, but didn't think much of it until about 4 a.m. He woke me up. Like Susie woke Frank when she heard the chickens start to crow. His eye was completely matted shut. He couldn't open it. It was very bloodshot and swollen. Egads! Pink eye! I thought, and like Sister and her impetigo, wondered how and where at what now. I looked it up in the Merck manual, and hunted up the little tube of Aureomycin ointment Papa had sent me some time ago, thank goodness, or was it Jeanne, and started using it. By morning it was little better, and he had something of a sore throat too, so I decided it wasn't pink eye, but catarrhal infection, and felt some better. However, the nurse wouldn't let him stay until it had been okayed. So we reported to his teacher that he had to go home for the day. I treated it carefully, and then on Wednesday a.m. made a trip down to the dispensary at the base to have the doctors okay to get him back into school Wednesday p.m. He didn't miss out on much because we brought his books home and did the work here. His throat was quite sore, but I gave him aureomycin and sulfa, and it is well enough now to go to school. While Lewis was getting his books to come home, I asked the teacher how he was doing, and she said, "Well, his work is much better. I find that when we go to gym class or something like that he gets a little too excited, and sometimes I have to scold him for that. But he is right up there with his work now, and seems very interested." That made me feel better, though frankly I always did feel he was doing better than she gave him credit for. I'm hoping for some better grades on the report card that should be due soon. He read quite well for me, I thought, but I do know part of his trouble, and I shall try to tell you about it. The little story he was reading me from his little reader was about making a toy farm, and about the animals on the farm. He reads several sentences, for instance, "Jim was the farmer. He likes the farm. The calf eats hay." We would read one sentence, and then interject the thought, "Grandpa has a farm where was I? Oh, he likes the farm. So do I, and someday maybe I'll have a farm. The calf eats hay. Yes, I know they do, for I saw Grandpa's calves eat hay." All these thoughts which he put into words probably goes through his head as he sits in class and reads and delay his reading promptness. She, the teacher, of course doesn't understand that, and I doubt if she is quite as patient as she might be. Oh, well, the fact that she said he was right up there makes me feel much better, and so I shall not worry now. I've known for some time, though, that he jumps ahead with his thoughts, for he does it to me, too. His eye is about all right now. The Navy doctor is about the poorest excuse for an MD I've been unfortunate enough to meet in a long time, and I don't think I'll ever go there with him again. I didn't have to this time, except to get him okayed as not having had or carrying pink eye. Before I forget it, I'm going to send you a little picture he made, Papa, and also a number paper. I wanted to send something like that to little M in return for her name, and shall if I can find something amongst the papers I've saved. So I just want to say, if little Lewis has to sing Old MacDonald Had a Farm, he's not making it through without, and so does Grandpa Demery.
That's, little boys.
That's how he is.
And again, like, I think that this is a problem that we have, like, where we're too strict with kids and we, like, expect them to be a certain way. And for him to get excited at gym class, of course.
Yeah.
Of course. I mean, if you are having trouble, like, see, Montessori schools, like, this isn't just like a, something I'm like, oh, I feel this way. No, like Montessori schools, if the children have too much energy, send them outside, go play, go run, get it out, do what you need to do. And so anytime we read about school and stuff, I'm always like, why do you care what that teacher thinks?
Mrs. Howe.
You know what I mean? Like, why do you care? Oh, well, he's doing better. You know what? You're a horrible teacher. But I hate this. It just reinforces the whole thing with homeschool. Let's see, what was I gonna? I'm sorry, I lost my place.
I did want to mention one other thing, because we were talking about the farms, and I realized at the end of the last letter, we did have a Latin phrase people might be curious about. So, speaking of farms, Sweetie had given the phrase filia agricolae sunt, because we didn't talk about that 1616 Bible, which I think we still have in the collection here.
You do.
Sweetie's not going to give up a 1616 Bible. But that translates roughly to, they are the daughter of a farmer. So, we know Chester likes his agricolae.
Oh, yeah. It's a great word.
Yeah, it's such a good word.
It is a good word. So he got sick, of course.
Of course. Yeah.
Of course, he got sick with, like, the eye thing. But she was able to take care of it. She had her Merck manual. See, she's like, practice makes progress,
Yeah, the aureomycin, that's also clearly an ointment at the time. So that was being used for a lot of different things. And of course, we can't get through one letter without a mention of sulfa, because sulfa time.
It's sulfa time.
It's always sulfa time. Speaking of what time it is. Special disclaimer. The medicines and other medical treatments noted in these historical letters from the 1950s are specific to Sweetie's story and might not be recommended today, or are even more regulated than they were so many years ago. As such, None of the medical information contained within these letters is to be construed as medical advice. Talk to your doctor. Thank you for your attention to this message. Now, back to the show. Yeah, talk to your doctor. Aureomycin, sulfa, and everything else that could be subsequently mentioned in her letters from the 50s.
Yes. So, so she's dealing with that again.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I think she has a couple more things that she's still dealing with. Poor thing.
Well, Lou and Louis seem to be pretty well on the mend, and so it is my turn, and I've taken it. You know, my colds are usually in the nose, and this is no exception. I tried the little nose sprayer, Jetamixer that Papa sent, and find it does work pretty well once I get the hang of squirting, sniffing, and throwing my head back all at the same time. I do not care for the Wyamine that came with particularly, but used the neosynephrine in the squirter. My throat was pretty sore, and I decided I'd take some sulfa myself to help seed the departing cold. Took one dose at 9 a.m. and the second at 12 noon, and by 1 o'clock I had broken out all over with hives. I'd forgotten that I've done that before, and was I miserable for a few hours. They were not big hives. It looked more like measles rash and itch. Egads! Thank heaven it didn't last too long. I feel better this morning, but still have a stopped-up nose and can't lose the blah feeling. Before I get too far away from talking about Louis, I have a problem, Mr. Anthony, and believe me, shall be more than glad if anyone can offer a solution. Louis, like most kids, dislikes leaving the TV to go to bed, but I've been putting him to bed at 7:45 each night in spite of his protests. He was going to bed earlier for a time, 7:30. He wouldn't drop right off to sleep, but once he did, he would wake in about a half hour. Rather, he wouldn't wake, but would start crying in his sleep with one of those nightmares that he has had more or less all his life. I'd go dashing up the steps at a speed like enough to promote heart failure after hearing him shriek, and try to comfort him. I learned early to get him to the bathroom, but when he was smaller I'd carry him in. We'd go to the bathroom without waking and would promptly resume the nightmare where I had interrupted it. He slipped out of my arms one night as I groped for the light in the bathroom, and as soon as his feet hit that cold linoleum, it woke him up. I tried to find out what he was dreaming, but couldn't, as it left him immediately. After that time, I made him walk, or rather stagger to the bathroom on his own feet, since it woke him up, and the nightmare left. This happens almost every night, or did, when I was trying to get him to bed at 7:30. I accidentally discovered also that if he stayed up later beyond his bedtime and until he was more tired, that he dropped off immediately into a deeper sleep and wasn't tormented by the dreams quite so often. So I extended the time 15 minutes, and you'd be surprised that it does make quite a bit of difference. I also tried to keep him from having more than a half a glass of milk at supper time, and refused him anything after that time, but this seemed to do more harm than good. He'd cry sometimes 2 or 3 times, and when I took him to the bathroom, it did no good. This occurs much more frequently now than it did before school started, and it has me worried. I wonder if you wise sages would offer a solution. I've experimented until I'm about ready to give up the spook. Frank mentioned sleeping pills for Susie, and I wonder if he has found them successful. I think the refusal, "No, no, no more water. No, you can't have a drink," was bad for him, and promoted rather than cured the nightmares. We try to avoid any unpleasantness at night time, and try to get him off to bed on a cheery note, which isn't always too easy, but while it helps, it isn't enough. He is growing up quite quickly. He came home the other night and told me about Sally's mother making a chart and paying her for jobs and errands she does, and why couldn't he make some money too? Well, we made up a chart too for jobs done. For instance, he has to hang up his pajamas each morning, put his toys away, hang up his coat, set the table, clear the table, keep his shoes tied, go to bed without arguing, eat whatever we have without complaint, be good in school. I believe there are 10 items on the list, and at night, when he is getting ready for bed, we check the list. He gets a penny for each job he does, and after I pay him for what he has done, Then he has to turn around and pay me for the jobs he didn't do, or for the haranguing I do to get them done. He averages about 3 cents a day, and setting and clearing the table, not to count the lack of clothes lying around, is a big help to me. Miss Darst firmly believes I've taken the first step to destroying that fine and beautiful feeling he should have and do the jobs without pay. She may be right, but he's a lot more help to me since we started than he ever thought of being before. Lewis is growing awfully tall, but he seems quite slim. He is 46.5 inches tall and weighs 46.5 pounds. I've no chart, but the Navy doctor at the General Hospital said it was all right that he wasn't underweight. He looks quite pale most of the time, though he doesn't seem to lack in energy or devilment. Lou bought me a little baby brownie camera at the base, and as soon as we have a sunny day, I'm going to start taking a bunch of pictures to send to you, so you can see how he has grown and how he looks. I think he's a right smart-looking kid, and he is good-looking too.
Well, he did look like his daddy.
Mm-hmm. Yep. He's tall. So
And
tall
he's
for his
tall. He's
Yeah.
so tall. Poor Lewis.
age.
Like all this stuff, like these are typical problems
Yep.
you have. She's really trying everything to
Yeah.
figure it out. Oh, it's such a shame. I wonder too, like how far away is the bathroom from his room?
Right.
What
Yeah.
do they have to deal with that? But I do like that she's really trying, like, and compromising how she feels about things. Like she thinks that you need to go to bed at 7:30,
Mm-hmm.
and she's like, well, I'll work with that to try to like help you.
Yeah.
7:30 though, I'm thinking, sometimes in the
It's
summer,
early.
yeah,
It's still light out in the summer.
I can't go to bed when it's light out.
Mm-hmm.
Ugh. So,
Yeah.
but you see him, and I think Sally is like his little best friend.
I think so. Little Sally told Lewis that she was making some money at home.
Mhm.
And I love this idea of not only are we paying for chores, but if you don't do the chores, it's a negative. I don't know how much that tactic is used today, but this sounds very interesting. And he's like, he averages about 3 cents. And if there's about 10 tasks to do, I would like to tell my father, who I know is going to listen to this episode, I think you're failing if you're only making 3 cents. So
Ooh.
she says she's happy, but like there's 10 chores, you're averaging 3 cents, so you're not doing more than you're doing things. But the things you're doing is helping your mother. You have to start netting a better average here. So
Wow.
we'll see.
You feel that burn 70
Yep.
years ago there,
Yeah.
sir?
Mm-hmm.
Your daughter's just roasting you. I think that this was a fun idea. I kind of like that. Like that seems like a little extra step
Yeah.
that I would have never ever considered. Actually, here's a story. I spoil the kids. It's so funny. We went on a trip up to Erie, and we went like on a boat tour,
Mm-hmm.
and we had just met at that time, and I don't think I was even pregnant. No, this is before I was pregnant with Forrest. We got our little chipmunk Stuffy,
Okay.
and we're on the boat, and she's playing with it on the rail, and this other lady goes,
Yeah.
"Now you better not drop that, because then you're not gonna get another one." And I was like, if she drops it, I'm gonna turn around and go buy her another one. Like, don't even tell me. So, but I would have never thought to like charge my children for this chores. They don't.
Yeah, that's a new one. That's an interesting one.
I'm gonna go run that by them later on and see how they like it, and I'll get back to you next week on it. I wonder, like, if he didn't do anything.
Yeah. Yeah.
He would have to, but he was motivated. Oh, and then another thing that Miss Darst doesn't approve of. Ugh, I think the list of things that she does approve of is short. That's the
very
list.
small list.
What does she like? What does Miss Darst find joy in?
This was a comment on the YouTube video, and it's like they were talking about Marie Kondo. She does not bring joy. It's the reverse Marie Kondo. There is no joy here.
There's no joy. She does not spark joy.
No.
What do you do what do you do? What is it? Snuff out a candle, snuff out the joy.
Oh, Yeah, whatever that is, that's what she's doing.
Yeah.
Mhm.
She's not sparking nothing.
Yeah.
Um, but he's growing up, he's getting bigger, like,
Yeah.
she is really seeing she's moving out of that stage where she needs to help him and hold his hand,
Mhm.
and, and I think that that's a beautiful metaphor right now, like, she used to carry him
Yeah.
in the bathroom, and now he's walking.
Mhm.
Ooh, man, he's just getting big.
But one more part of this letter to go as we conclude at least the family letter. We do have another letter to follow this one. I blame Papa for my next item of trouble. He wrote me about having trouble with so many mice. I'd just gotten rid of ours with some spring traps and was congratulating myself, and then here comes this letter telling me all the trouble he's having with mice. And what happens? We've been invaded. Mice egad, and smart little devils too. They have been robbing the bait from the traps repeatedly. I even went and bought a bunch of new traps, thinking they'd be easier to spring. So what happens? They rob them too. I bought some geraniums last year to set out in our jardiniere and in a flower box in the sleigh. Jeanne will remember from her visit, and when cold weather came, I brought them inside, of course. The foliage is beautiful, the leaves are large and lush and green, but they don't bloom. The little fern-like greens seem to have done pretty well. The collie, or Joseph's coat, has done fairly well too, but I didn't keep them picked back. The century plants or patience plants have just bloomed their heads off. Even Miss Darst's old lily has given us 4 blooms. But those geraniums are just contrary. They look nice, but won't bloom. And like Jean's training her kids to bawl now, I don't like plants that just grow and don't bloom. I took me down to the store and bought some plant food that comes in tablet form. You poke a hole into the pot right close to the root, and then push the plant tablet down in. Repeated watering dissolves them, and they nourish the plant and supposedly make it bloom. Well, those mice have taken a fancy to those tablets, and are getting up onto the pots and practically uprooting all my plants to get at them. I've baited traps and set right above the tablet, thinking that if they started digging, the trap would at least go off and scare them away if it didn't catch them. How they do it, I don't know, but they can get that tablet every time. Like Miss Darst, I'm reduced to shaking my head and saying, "The nerve of them!" But can't you think I'm going to give up to that little mouse, nor those non-blooming geraniums? There's blood in my eye today, and I bet there'll be a mouse in the traps tonight, if I have to beat it over the head and then spring the trap on it, besides. Ugh! Sister, I do thank you for the list of names and dates. Be the good Lord and my head willing, I'll not fall short on so many dates this year. I'm glad you could use the few things I could send, as you stated. Now that he is bigger, most everything is worn out before it is outgrown. Those knees of the corduroys are ample proof. The good pair that Jeanne sent to Louis, which I might say have kept him in school almost entirely, shows much wear in the knees, and when I hunted downtown for corduroy to patch the knees, could find nothing that would even come close, and so had to buy some leather patches. The pants as a whole are in good condition, but playing on his knees has worn off the wail of the corduroy. I hated to use that kind of patch, but could see no other out. I feel, as I wrote before, that the things that G-Mom and Elizabeth buy must be returned to her rapidly growing Indians. But I wish I could send more to my side of the family, and will try to do so. I can picture you poring over the seeds catalogs. I remember how you did so when Dee was newly home from the hospital the time I stayed with you. I wish I had you here to help me plan and lay out flower gardens. I do not particularly like to sprinkle them here and there, but much prefer them in plots, as it is easier to warn the kids away from a small plot of flowers than to point them out singly. Also, it is easier to mow the lawn if there is some regularity and border. This soil is in poor condition, and I wonder if anything will grow. You did not tell us that you had partly built the new kitchen wall. I can't quite picture it, since I know your backyard slopes rapidly away from the house. Your front bank could be a lovely flower garden, or rather rock garden, and I do wish I knew the name of that low-growing but very beautiful pink, white, and purple flower that is quite common here. It seems to be used chiefly for rock gardens, like that, and is beautiful. I shall be glad to have those movies as soon as Jeanne can spare them. We still have the borrowed projector, though I'm beginning to feel I must get it returned. If I'm the slimmest of the three of us, I feel sorry for you two remaining ones. You saw by those movies that I was sloppy fat, and I hated something awful. I do not actually keep my weight a secret from you others as much as I keep it a secret from myself. I refuse to get on a scale, for if I don't know just exactly how much I weigh, I can't feel quite as badly as if I knew. Obtuse reasoning, but good for my morale. However, if you saw those movies, be assured your sympathy is appreciated. Shortly after we saw them, Lou walked up to me and pinched my upper arm, rather experimentally, and then commented, "You won't even bring top-marked prices if you're too fat." That did it. Something's got to be done. I'm glad to hear that M.A. is in 8th grade, not high school. You don't know how much younger that makes me feel. I was interested in the article on the Iotans. He surely has left a nice record behind him, and it does speak well for them both. Hope they are well pleased with the new location and leave it as well boosted as they did Windsor. It has been some time since I've heard from Jeanne, and wonder if she is too busy to drop us a line. I hope that Mama and Papa are both well, and not out too much in the cold. I'll surely be glad to see winter leave this year. We'll have to do a lot of work on this house before another winter rolls around. We're losing too much heat through these old and ill-fitting windows and doors. Before I forget it, Papa, would you be able to send me some sulfa and some dexedrine? I'm not in any great hurry for either, as I can't take the sulfa myself, and both Lou and Louis are over the worst of their colds. I have some dexedrine, too, but I'm going to start dieting and getting myself into decent shape before G-Mom comes over to make over some of Elizabeth's clothes. Oh, yes, I forgot to tell you that Elizabeth and Bob are going to go to Florida sometime in April to a newspaperman's convention with Mr. Brown. G-Mom Graham gets stuck with the 3 babies and probably ulcers and a nervous breakdown. She is worrying about being alone with them while Elizabeth and Bob are gone, and I think probably she is expecting us to have her bring them and come over here to stay. There would be the problem of getting 3 cribs over here and the necessary paraphernalia to care for 3 babies. I wonder if Miss Darst wouldn't just go right out through the roof, and I confess I'm just about curious enough to try it and see. Actually, I don't see any other out, for she just hasn't got the get up and bounce she used to have, and frankly, I wonder that Elizabeth would expect her to do it. Don't mention this in any letters, as Lou may consider it none of my business, which it isn't yet. We shall see. We shall see. Well, Tempest is fidgeted right up to the time to get this in the box if the mailman will pick it up today, and so I'd best stop now while there is room enough on the paper to tell you all that I'd love to visit with each of you and would love to see you all. Mama and Papa, be careful. Keep in where it is warm, and let me know how you are. Love to each of you. Sweetie, Lou, and Louis. I love the one phrase here in this section after she's talking about G-Mom Graham having to take care of the 3 little babies. And this is one of the points where I completely disagree with Sweetie in a letter, and it's rare that I disagree with Sweetie. She says, for she just hasn't got the get up and bounce she used to have, in reference to G-Mom. And frankly, I wonder that Elizabeth would expect her to do it. Really. You wonder that Dit is, like, it surprises you that Dit isn't gonna run, that she would run to Florida for a convention where she could be a social butterfly and leave her 3 children with G-Mom Graham to act as babysitter for however long. Sweetie, that's her MO. I wonder how she hasn't sensed this was coming, because this was referenced in an earlier letter prior to this one. And immediately Jamie and I were like, wonder who's going to take care of the kids. So,
oh, you knew she wasn't bringing them with her. No. Yeah, it is a shame.
Yeah.
She does really seem to take advantage of, and then G-Mom isn't comfortable enough to be like, hey, can I just come there? Actually, I think it'd be better if Sweetie just went there.
Yeah.
And just took Louis and just hung out. She's done that before. Her and Marguerite have gone and helped clean and do things and get things up to par. Because Dit was on bed rest. for her pregnancies. Like she could not. She had many problems. So, oh, they talked about the seed catalogs.
I thought you'd like all that section about the flowers and the planting and this relationship with sister about,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of the growing flowers. That's a beautiful part. The not beautiful part of this letter is, and I think we need to comment on, this is the 50s. These expectations for these women to just constantly be losing weight and all the dependence on Dexedrine. So for people that haven't really listened before, Dexedrine gets mentioned a lot. Sometimes it's called Dexy. This was something really used to calm nerves at the time, and it was thought that it was basically used as a dieting idea. I guess to eliminate stress eating and things like that, but it was to keep the women as calm as possible at home. So we get that picture of like the 50s housewife, and we're going to be talking about this in the next episode too. Spoiler alert. Um, and the expectations, and it's such a big expectation and just such a societal norm that Lou, for all of his compassion for his wife that we've seen prior to this, makes these comments that are just completely distasteful and wouldn't be acceptable today. And I
Well,
yeah,
like I don't think that he's like doing this maliciously.
right, yeah,
She clearly has a poor body image.
mm-hmm,
And if she's expressing that, like,
mm-hmm,
so if she's like in everyday life just expressing those things, then he's going to feel comfortable enough to express those things to her too. Because
yeah,
she's like constantly, and in these letters she's like saying, I'm so fat, like so what do you think she's doing at home
mm-hmm,
when she puts stuff on? I mean, and I've been through this too. Like we've all, like, especially she's like 28, right?
yeah,
27, 28 years old.
yeah,
Um, when you're 14 or 15 or 16 or 17,
mm-hmm,
you're little. That's how it goes. And then she's also had a baby.
mm-hmm,
So we don't have this this positive body image like that is realistic
mm-hmm,
for people in the era. Like they think, oh, you should do this, or you should, let's, and what the medical or the science community has been like, let's make a little pill,
yeah, yeah.
which is
We'll
just the
just solve it
solution
with
for
the
everything.
pill.
We'll just make a little pill.
Yep.
So it does, and we are going to talk about this. I think this is a subject I'd love to get more into,
Mm-hmm.
but, and we will
In the
next
next,
episode.
yeah,
But the society in the 50s and that trope of the 50s housewife, and dealing with these problems of like, do I look thin enough?
mm-hmm,
Am I attractive to my husband? Am I taking care of him? Am I like doing all these things, and not really focusing and not like having any kind of yourself in that picture,
right,
because they think, oh, I'm worried about my body, so that's not it.
mm-hmm,
That's not it. This is the way that the society was. And I think that this is a fascinating topic, and like, because if my husband ever did that to me, then I don't know what I would do, because he would never do that.
I wanted to put it in some numerical perspective. We see from pictures, she doesn't look like she's overweight or anything like that, and what the expectations were. So I'm going to absolutely, in a very rare case here, because I think people need to know just how much pressure these women are putting on each other. There's a letter that I recently transcribed from Sweetie, and it's from December of 1953. Now, this letter, this little portion doesn't say what's going on at the time, so there's no spoiler for this. But it does put into perspective the weight issue and about where she is numerically with her weight, if people are curious, what the obsession was about. And she writes the following. She writes about losing 5 pounds, and she says, I lost to 123, and then as soon as he got home, gained back to 125. So you see, it sounded good as far as I went. I just didn't went far enough. I weigh just that now, not 115, but 125, and I hate every stinking pound of it. I'm going to try to lose some, but it's hard to do, believe me. When she's talking about losing weight, what she's talking about is she feels fat at 125 pounds. And that's the range she's in at this time period.
And she's like 5'4".
Right. She's not overweight.
She's 5'4".
Yeah.
This is, and again, I don't think that we had a very good idea of what healthy was.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yep.
I do think that this is also something that has been happening currently in culture is we're seeing that a lot of actresses from the 90s, a lot of actresses who are older now, are not getting Botox, are not getting fillers. They're not doing, I mean, Pam Anderson has sworn off like makeup. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
We are getting to a place, and I feel especially happy now as a woman who's 45, like having an understanding that we don't have to look like we're 30
Mhm.
all of our lives. We don't need to like do things to make ourselves look younger, where there's this almost permission to get older now.
Mhm.
So it's taken a very long time, and there's a lot of influence, not just in like your family or your friends and stuff, in the media.
Yeah.
I mean, I look at like Scarlett O'Hara, like that. You think that she looked like that when she was 25, 26, had kids? Like, no,
Mhm.
it's just not realistic. There's no realistic expectations here.
Yeah.
And for her to think that way, yeah, this is definitely something that has changed, though.
Mhm. Yeah.
This
For
has
the better.
changed.
This has changed.
This has changed. And I'm
Mhm.
hoping maybe that, it will get even better. And I mean, I really do think it is. Maybe it is.
I
I
think
don't
it
know.
is. Yeah. Mhm.
But for her to be upset about being, yeah,
About that range, just so people really understand, even as our audio listeners who, even if they never see a picture, this is what we're talking about. This was societal pressure at the time, and it was awful. There's no way around it.
mhm.
Um, but one little last letter here, we get a hint towards this other letter that's out there because she's like, Jeanne hasn't written much. That always upsets her when she doesn't hear back from her closest confidant. So on the same day, Sweetie writes a letter just to Jeanne. 363 North Main Street, Doylestown, Pennsylvania, January 25th, 1952. Dear Jeanne, I have just written the usual family letter, but since your husband, like mine, is free to read the family letters, I'm going to risk writing to you at work to find out how you are. It has been some time since we've heard from you, at least it seems like a dreadfully long time, and I can't help but feel concerned for you when no letters arrive. After going to all this trouble to write you at work, I shall expect a very honest letter from you, and want to know how you're making it, and if Glenn is acting more like a human being than he did here. If you do not want Lou to read it, I'll be able to get it hidden or destroyed before he gets home from work. The mail comes about noon here, and since Lou doesn't get home for lunch, I don't have any difficulty confiscating things he doesn't need to see, as I did down at the little house, where he came home at noon, and where Louis saw all the mail too. I did write and tell the folks some of the things that rankled me, and then just recently I wrote and told Papa that I thought he ought to warn you about gaining too much weight in front of Glenn, and suggest that you take Dexedrine to slow up your mining. I hate to sound like I'm interfering, but I know how dreadful I feel when I've gained a lot of weight, and I wonder if just losing weight might not give you a boost in your morale and make it easier for you to meet other troubles with more determination to beat them. I can't see any excuse for Glenn being so damn domineering that he'd forbid you to take Dexedrine, and to be honest, how come you are so subservient that you kowtow all the time? What is to keep you from keeping Dexedrine at work and taking it there? That would help you cut down on your eating, if of course it doesn't give you away in being too quick to get sore at him. I find that I can cover the Dexedrine nicely until it begins to wear off, and then I'm far apt to be more irritable, and so is Lou, and so if I need a boost and take some, I keep myself under control, and if I'm beginning to chop somebody's head off, I just stop right quick. I find that I'm apt to be unfair to Louis. He might do something that I would usually check him for, but if I've had Dexedrine, I'm more apt to whip than scold, and so for that reason I've cut myself down on it, until I'm the original fat lady. However, now that I'm fat and Louis goes unwhipped, I'm more apt to feel blue and worry and fret over many things, and I attribute my depression to being so very fat, and so I've got to do one of several things. Be fat and sloppy and blue, or take Dexedrine and trim myself down, and still exert enough self-control to keep from nagging and pounding the kid, and I'm determined to do the last one. Can't you keep some Dexedrine hidden at work and take it there, on the QT? And then be extra careful not to give yourself away at home? Bet you can if you're careful. I wonder, too, if Glenn has decided there is no longer any point in trying to keep your marriage secret. You wrote that you'd had his son and daughter over for Christmas dinner. Surely Glenn isn't so stupid as to think that boy of his wouldn't notice a wedding ring, if the little girl is stupid. Or did you try to hide it then? I think that one point right there is a major crime, and while I didn't write and tell the folks about it, I'm surely tempted, and may do so yet. If I were you, I'd just make no bones about it to anyone. If that woman really was interested in what he's doing, do you think she wouldn't have found out by now that he's living with you in that apartment? If you want my opinion, Glenn has a sadly distorted picture of that woman, and you're a chump to fall for it. He must think he is far more important to her, or to the kid's support, than he really is. And as long as he is acting like he did here, you'll never convince me that his first wife isn't damn glad to be rid of him. I don't want to pick him to pieces before you. That is bad. But just the same, we had you long before we ever had him, and he damn well better start acting like a human being, or he'll find the whole family scrubbing him up right good. I'd better stop right now before I make a bad matter worse and sticking my nose in where it isn't invited. But you'd better let me hear from you, and tell the truth too, in just a few days, or I'll write a family letter that will make what little hair he's got stand right up on end and burn. I like you. Love, Sweetie.
I have a friend. I love her. I haven't talked to her for a little while. And she told me one time that what's the best piece of advice I ever got, one of the best pieces I ever got. Don't put it in writing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, she put all of that down on paper. That's kind of, well, so I have a little problem, because she's like, you should take Dexedrine and hide it from him.
Mm-hmm.
But then she's like, you shouldn't hide your marriage.
Don't hide your marriage, but also let's hide this letter and this communication.
Exactly.
There's a lot of here.
It's a little bit, it's a little hypocritical. It's a little hypocritical. But I think this is going to definitely lead in to 100. This is going to lead into the next episode, because this is kind of like, we've seen her counsel. We've seen Sweetie counsel Jeanne through, relationship problems and stuff. And now they're both married.
Right.
This is different. Being engaged, dating, courting, all of that, that's all way different than being actually married. And Jeanne is now in that place where she's actually married. And it's an odd situation, because it's, she's coming into stepchildren, and she's coming into a relationship where he doesn't really want the ex-wife to know he got remarried again and all this stuff. And he doesn't want her to take Dexedrine. And now she's being subservient, which is the weirdest thing I've ever heard from Jeanne.
Jeanne. Yeah.
There's a lot to unpack with this one.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And because we already talked about the Dexedrine and everything that goes with that. And we've already mentioned now, if we notice at the beginning of that letter, if people on YouTube run the letter back, she writes this letter to Jeanne at work. It goes to Iowa Pack. This letter is being hidden from Lou. Lewis is at school. She can get it to the mailman with nobody noticing. Sweetie has a plan. She's waiting for Jeanne to write and waiting to send her response. And we're going to get that response in episode 100. Nothing more to say. We're going to continue this, whatever this is, into the big episode next week.
Bye, everyone.